Check, 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 check. Can anyone hear me? Man, OBS for Streamlabs usually works really, really well, but it does not want to broadcast today at all. It's weird. So I'll wait until I see somebody in the chat say that they can hear me. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Is the audio doing that weird echo thing again? Oh my gosh. Headphones are stuck. There we go. I'll test it myself. There we go. I'll test it myself. Check 1 2. Check. I'll test it myself. Check 1 2. Check. I'll test it myself. Yeah, it's echoing, isn't it? Yeah, it's echoing, isn't it? Anyone? Hey, Benny. Hey, is the audio working okay now, or is it echoing, or... I'm using the old OBS, and it's always been a pain in the ass. Just watching an ad. I'm not a big fan of OBS, but Elgato software does not like webcams at all. It was echoing? Okay, because I'm using desktop capture, so that makes sense. All right, well, I mean, I really didn't set anything up. I'm going to take these off because I don't need them. I just kind of got in the mood to podcast today. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, all right. So, if you don't know me for whatever reason, my name is Glenn. I used to be the host of the PlayStation Nation podcast. The audio portion of this will be released on PS Nation's feed. No idea. I'm not great at doing these on my own. I usually like having someone to bounce things off of. But as you can see, I'm also recording video. So let's talk about Brexit. Yeah, right. So I got a few things I want to talk about. I'm using the Yeti microphone today, as you can see. So I'm not sure if the audio is going to be as good as it used to be. But I just kind of threw this together today. So kind of impromptu podcast. So first things first, between jobs as usual. So figured I have all this free time right now, so I might as well record something. I got a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions just from people, messaging me and whatnot. So I figured I'd address some of those and talk about some stuff that's interesting to me. That sort of thing. So kind of have like some notes, things that I want to talk about, and I've got some questions that people submitted to me on Twitter, and on our Facebook page. So I'll check the Facebook page a little bit later on and see if there's any new questions. But hi, how's it going? It's been a little while since I podcasted. The last time I was when I was on with Dave and MJC when the whole Josh thing happened. Sorry, I should have gotten a glass of water before I started. Oh well. So I don't know if this is going to be a thing. I mean, Stuart had teased for a long time that he wanted to do something. Stuart always seems really busy, so I'm not sure if Stuart and I are ever going to do anything. But you never know. So we'll see what happens and stuff and junk. Need to see if the microphone is crapping out. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So anyway, I wonder why the chat's not working up here. That's interesting. Because it's coming through, but I see no chat. So I'm just going to do this for now. Okay. So, the first thing I want to talk about some old shit. Specifically the Genesis Mini, the TurboGrafx Mini, some FPGA stuff, and kind of explain what FPGA is and what I've been doing with it. Also, an old console and a new console coming up that is going to emulate old consoles. So, first off, the Genesis Mini. Obviously, everyone knows you got the PS Nation chat up and not your Torgo chat up. Well, I'm on the PS Nation channel, aren't I? Aren't I? Yeah. I wonder if I had the wrong chat up. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the problem. Let me see if I can fix that first. Man. Oh, yeah, it is Torgo. All right. Well, let me try to fix that quick. Come on. Where the shit is the window? Shit just does not want to work ever. This is all because I had so many problems with OBS. Ugh. Yeah, it doesn't want to work. I'm not going to worry about chat for today then. So, first thing is the Genesis Mini. I mean, obviously a lot of people realize that I was never that big of a fan of the Genesis. I'm actually gaining kind of more, I wouldn't call it love, but more respect for it, I guess, or just more of anything. Yeah, I'm a noob. It's true. And part of that is because of the Mega SG from Analog, which is the FPGA console for the Genesis, but also the Mr. FPGA, which I've been messing with quite a bit, which you can see right here. So it's just this little device. It's FPGA like the Mega SG and like the Super NT. But it allows for multiple things. So I've got quite a bit on there already. I've got all the major ones: Super Nintendo, Genesis, NES, Master System, Game Gear, TurboGrafx, Super Graphics, even like the Bally Astrocade and Game Boy Color, Game Boy, a lot of stuff like that, and it's really cool. It's really well done. You can play pretty much everything. Like the SNES core, they even put Super FX support, which the jailbroken firmware for the analog Super NT, the SNES clone, the jailbroken stuff doesn't support Super FX in ROMs, which that's not a selling point, so that's fine. So it's cool because that's in here. And then the other thing that I thought was really neat is that someone just added access to the Genesis core on the Mr. FPGA for one game, for the virtual racing for the Genesis, for the SVP chip it's called, which is basically their version of the FX. But that's the only game that ever used that on the Genesis. So it's really cool. Everyone's giving me shit. So I've gained kind of more respect for the Genesis a little bit because back in the day, I never really liked the Genesis because they always talked about arcade graphics and blah, 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 16-bit this and that. But the intention, it's pretty obvious now that the intention was always that this is the evolution from the NES, from the 8-bit NES, and not trying to rival actual arcade games. Because let's be honest, some of the arcade games they converted over to the Genesis, like eSWAT and stuff like that, just Super Monaco GP, nowhere close to the arcade versions. And I never really equated that in my brain because I already had a TurboGrafx 16 when I got the Genesis. And to me, the TurboGrafx is just a better system overall. It's got more colors, it's a lot faster, it doesn't really have much slowdown in games. I just really liked the TurboGrafx when I got it. And I got it well after the Turbo was released. I got it from my an outlet store, actually, JCPenney outlet store. So I never really gave the Genesis much of a chance. I had one. My grandmother bought one for me at Children's Palace on 95th and Metcalf. I still remember that. But, Altered Beast was packed in. It was a good-looking game, but you can get through it in like a half an hour at best. And it was just always a big disappointment to me since day one. I don't know. It just never really did much for me. But now that I'm messing with it more, the Streets of Rage series I've always loved. At least Streets of Rage 1 and 2. 3, the music is just crazy. He did this weird experimental thing with the music, and to me it just didn't work very well. But I'm enjoying some of the stuff on the Genesis more. I always like some of the games. Herzog Zwei, obviously, is just a fantastic game. But I never really appreciated the Thunder Force series, and I'm still having a problem with that one. But the Thunder Force series, I don't like Sonic at all. I don't like many games that have, their main character. I wasn't a big Bonk fan. I like Mario Brothers. That's probably the only series like that on a platform that I enjoy, even though I never played Super Mario Brothers 2 or 3. Yeah, I'm that guy. So I'm gaining an appreciation for the Genesis. I'm not playing a ton on it yet. What I do is I end up playing a lot of Streets of Rage 1 and 2. It's kind of my go-to thing in the Genesis. But, I will say, Sega must have hired somebody that knows what the hell they're talking about and what they're doing, because for a long time Sega has really made some bad choices, especially with hardware and with they did a clone machine before, like the Genesis 3 they licensed out, and it's shit. It's a nice little tiny console, but it's shit. It's got some incompatibilities. It's just not very good hardware. So we always had that rush of, before the quote-unquote the mini consoles came out, a lot of companies, like, they have the Atari Flashback and they've got the Intellivision Flashback with baked-in games, but there were always compromises in them. Sega had one, actually I think they have a couple, of Genesis clones like that from At Games. And At Games is terrible. Everything they've done is terrible. It always has promise, but it's terrible. Sound is completely fucked up. Audio is completely fucked up. They're junk. And then Sega originally announced that the Genesis Mini was going to come from At Games, and everybody said that's stupid. Luckily, Sega got smart, and they contracted M2, who is a development house in Japan that are well known for not only for basically doing conversions. They started with Gauntlet something on the Genesis, and they did it all by hand. They didn't convert any code over to the Genesis version for Tengen. They did it all just by what they could see. They're insanely talented people. They do some great, like Virtua Racing on the Switch. Holy crap. It's not just a simple conversion of that game. They really outdid themselves with it. And Virtua Racing is one of my all-time favorite games. Except for the mobile phone version, I believe I own every home version of Virtua Racing, because I've just always loved that game. So M2's doing all the emulation on the Genesis Mini, which is, quite frankly, it's badass. And you can expect nothing less than near perfect emulation, but also some really good filtering and whatnot. So the game catalog overall, I think, is one of the better ones on the minis. What we've got so far is Sonic the Hedgehog, yippee. Echo the Dolphin, yippee. Castlevania Bloodlines, which is a huge get, and it's a great Castlevania game, even though I'm not a big fan of it in the series. It's a good game. Space Harrier 2, Shining Force, very, very popular. I think this one here is probably one of the throwaways. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody cares. It's a Tetris clone. Toe Jam and Earl, I can't stand that series. I know it's got a huge following, but I cannot stand them, including the remake on the current consoles. Comic Zone, which is cool. It's a neat concept. I was never that big of a fan of it. I always thought it was kind of clunky. Alter Beast, there's history there, even though that's not that great of a game, but there's history. Gunstar Heroes, obviously one of the best games from Treasure, one of the best games on the Genesis. It's fantastic. Earthworm Jim, again, from a technical standpoint, awesome game. Really cool animation, a lot of fun. I've never liked the series because I think the level layout is very kind of broken, and it's always been weird. And the funny thing about Earthworm Jim is, this was developed mainly by Dave Perry, who ended up working for Sony, and he built Gaikai, and they got bought up by Sony, and now Dave Perry's also working on some stuff for the new Intellivision. I forget the name of the thing, but for the new Intellivision console. But you can't deny Earthworm Jim made a huge impact in the 16-bit era. I mean, it really did. I'm not a fan, but I get it. Sonic 2, yippee. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, one of the best games for the Genesis ever. Just an amazing game. World of Illusion with Mickey and with Donald Duck, which is awesome. Contra Hardcore, which is one of the best in the series, one of the best games on the Genesis. I mean, graphics-wise, they did stuff that you never would imagine could be done on the Genesis, and it's a really damn good game. Thunder Force 3, which I think is the better of between 2 and 3. 2 had the overhead levels as well as the side-scrolling. 3 went to all side-scrolling, and it's definitely a better game. My problem is with shmups. The TurboGrafx was the king of the shmups in the 16-bit era. Over the Super Nintendo, over the Genesis, it really was. It's some amazing games. I mean, you can't beat Blazing Lasers. That was an early game for the system. Super Fantasy Zone, yeah, good game, good series. I have the PlayStation 2 Sega Ages from Japan that has all of the Fantasy Zone games on it. I'm not a big fan. Mark's a huge Fantasy Zone fan. Shinobi 3, all right. Streets of Rage 2, awesome. Landstalker, really good. This one is a big surprise. Mega Man The Wily Wars, which I really didn't know much about it, but Mega Man on the Genesis, I think this was only available on the Sega channel back then. We had to download it over the modem, I believe. So that's a huge get. Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition. This makes me laugh. It's a pretty good conversion. I had some people trying to argue with me that it's the best version because it's got extra animation, especially in the backgrounds. Who gives a fuck? How's it play? But the funny thing about Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition coming to the Genesis and the Genesis Mini is the Genesis Mini, the only thing you can get for it is a controller with 3 buttons. They're not offering the 6-button controller, and it comes with a 3-button controller. And then they contracted out to Retrobit for the additional controllers. But you can only get a 3-button controller. So for Street Fighter 2, seems kind of stupid. I'm surprised they're at least not selling a 6-button controller, but as far as I can see, they've never have. Hey, Buff, thanks much. Sorry, I'm not looking at the chat yet. I'm not used to doing a video. But Street Fighter 2, it's a big get. I think it's like a 40 meg cart on the Genesis. I mean, it's a big cart. I think it's the biggest cart on the system. It's good enough, But I remember at CES, we all laughed at the Genesis version. Ghouls and Ghosts. I mean, that's one of the defining games on the Genesis. I'm not a big fan of the series, but it really is. Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle. I've never been a fan of the series. I think a lot of people are kind of scoffing at that inclusion. There's better games than that. Beyond Oasis, that's a big get. Golden Axe. Golden Axe is good. Phantasy Star 4, that's a huge get. It's a tough cart to find. Even to this day, it's a really, like for collectors, it's a very tough cartridge to find. So it's a big deal. And it's funny because that actually came in a cardboard box. It was one of the later Genesis games when they switched from those harder than steel plastic cases to the box. So if you can find one of those in a box, it's huge. It's usually worth a lot of money. Sonic Spinball, awful game. It's Sonic the Hedgehog in a pinball game. I know some people that worked on it, and I've never been shy about telling them that it's a piece of shit. Vector Man. Vector Man, that was Sega's attempt at trying to do what they were doing with Donkey Kong Country and the SNES. It's using the pre-rendered visuals. I don't like the gameplay in Vector Man, though. I think it's really sloppy. And there's a Vector Man 2 even. I'm just looking at one list right now. But Vector Man, a lot of people like it. I don't like it. I just... Wonder Boy and Monster World, yeah, that's a defining game for the system. Tetris, I mean, all right. I don't like Tetris. I never have, so who cares? But it's kind of interesting that they got this because I think it's a new game. Darius for the Genesis, I've never actually played Darius on the Genesis. When I saw the announcement, I actually went out and found the ROM for it and played it. Darius is one of my favorite series. The Genesis one, it's not bad, but it's definitely not my favorite in the series. There's some just really good ones on the TurboGrafx and PC Engine. Road Rash 2, never liked the series, but Road Rash 2 is definitely the better of the two. Strider, awesome game on the Genesis, just an excellent conversion. I remember getting that from Japan actually, back when I still gave the Genesis a chance. It's fantastic. What do we got here? Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis. It's more like a Street Fighter 2 game. It's kind of weird. Alicia Dragoon, side scroller. It's got kind of a big following. I never really felt that game too much though. Kid Chameleon, I can't stand. Monster World 4, that's another big game for the system. It takes a lot of hours to finish it, and it's one of the better ones in the system. Eternal Champions, it's a fighting game series that Sega started to try to combat Street Fighter 2 a little bit. There's a CD version, there's a 32X version. I've never liked the series. I think it's clunky. I think the controls are just absolutely clunky, and it's not that great looking of a game either. Columns, again, a throwaway. Why do we need Columns and Dr. Robotnik's Bean Machine? Why do we need this many Tetris games? Dynamite Heady, another Treasure classic. I'm not as big a fan of it as I am Gunstar Heroes. It's a really charming game, though. It's a lot of fun, but something about the controls just never really did it for me. And Light Crusader, I really don't know much about Light Crusader. The interesting thing is they're doing a semi-different lineup in different territories. So in Japan, they're including a game which I can't believe is not on the American console, and that's Musha. Musha is probably one of the most coveted games on the Genesis. It's a vertical shoot 'em up from Compile, kind of in the same series as Spriggan on the TurboGrafx. It's one of the best games on the system, and I cannot believe they're not including it on the US console. That to me is unconscionable. But it's exciting. I think it's one of the better minis I've seen, especially with the lineups. M2 doing the conversions is hugely exciting. But because I already have the Mega SG and because I have the Mr. FPGA, I doubt that I'm going to get a Genesis Mini. I think that I can spend my money on better things, but also the fact that it only comes with a 3-button controller, even though only one... Actually, Eternal Champions might be better with a 6-button as well, but given the fact that Street Fighter is probably the only game that would use the 6-button controller, I kind of get it. But if you're going to be so excited about it, and you're going to make such a big deal about the fact that you got Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, that you got Capcom on board, and then you don't release a controller so you can play the game like it's supposed to be played. And honestly, Street Fighter 2 with 3 buttons, I mean, you can probably play it, but you're not going to be happy with it. Because I've played Street Fighter 2 on the PC Engine TurboGrafx with a 2-button controller, and it's not fun. It's just not good. So that's why I have a 6-button controller for my TurboGrafx. But anyway, do you think we'll see Saturn and Dreamcast minis? I think that the possibility is there, but it seems like, especially Saturn, Sega is more about converting some of the Saturn games to the consoles, like the Switch especially. Sega's really embraced the Switch. They're doing a Panzer Dragoon remaster, which is really cool because they lost all the source code for the Panzer Dragoon games, and there was a Q&A thing or a panel at GDC this last year, and they finally revealed that they're redoing Panzer Dragoon. Again, it's a franchise that I'm not a big fan of. I own a couple of them. I never got into the gameplay of them, but it's a huge thing. I mean, it's really big that they're going to do that, and quite frankly, if they do Panzer Dragoon Saga, which I've never played, and it's impossible to get on the Saturn. It's really rare. So if you can get it, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars, if not more. It's a big deal. And with Sega making such an investment in getting those games out on the current consoles, I see less of a possibility of a Saturn Mini happening. Dreamcast Mini, again, I don't think they will. I think they'll convert those to the modern consoles because the files are bigger, blah, 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 blah. I'm surprised that we got a PlayStation Mini, honestly, because you get to the point where you're not on a cartridge format anymore and you're on optical discs, and there's a lot more complexity. And Sony showed how to fuck it up because the PlayStation Mini is kind of a mess. Okay, it's a real mess. PS2 Mini, it's funny. In some ways, I think we will see a PS2 Mini because I think Sony wants to redeem themselves after the massive screw-up that the PS1 Mini is. The funny thing is, I think sales-wise, in terms of numbers, not in terms of money, but in terms of numbers, the PlayStation Classic did really well because everybody dumped the price right away. I mean, they're $30 on Amazon right now. I bought a second one. It's not opened. I bought a second one because I'm messing with the first one right now, modding it, just to mess with it. Because I really like the interface on the PlayStation Mini. I think it's a very, really nice, crisp interface that they have on it. But the fact that they put PAL versions of a bunch of the games on there, that makes it look really weird when you get it on an NTSC display, because they're going from 60 hertz to 50 hertz when you go to European ROMs. That's stupid. Like, who did that? I don't think it's as big of a... The problem is you see all these YouTubers nowadays, they always have to blow everything out of proportion to try to get clicks. It's always got to be all this drama. A PS2 Mini with backwards PS1... No, that won't happen. But a PS2 Mini I do think can happen. I mean, you're talking about a lot more storage, obviously, because you're going from CD to DVD. But I think a PS2 Mini, if done right, can do really, really well. I mean, the PS2 was a juggernaut. It sold so many units. There are so many amazing games on it. As long as they don't screw up what region the ROMs are from, they can do something really good with that thing. Maybe they'll even put a modem on it and you can play SOCOM. Yeah, right. No, I do think that there's a possibility of it. And I think if anybody can do it, it's Sony. It's just they need to put other people in charge, because whoever did the PlayStation Mini needs to be taken off any projects like that in the future. And there's other games, I think, for the Genesis Mini as well, but we'll get to that. But, I think they're doing a really good job with it. And the PlayStation Mini shows kind of where a company can screw up. And then you look at the SNES Mini from Nintendo, which is fantabulous. It's awesome. And literally why I bought it was Star Fox 2. The actual Star Fox 2. Not the one that leaked years ago, the beta. This is the full finished ROM. And Dylan Cuthbert was really surprised by it. He didn't know that they were going to do that. It's really cool. And I like this. I like the fact that these companies are now embracing the older stuff, the 16-bit days and even the 8-bit days to some extent. But I love that they're embracing all this now. And, I mean, obviously they're embracing it because there's money involved. They can make a lot of money. These are games that they're not making money on anymore, that they never really did anything with in the past. And, you know, every now and then you would see like some PlayStation 1 classics come out for the Vita and for PS3, but you never really saw a focus on it. You know, they would just kind of release the shit and go. I mean, you see some cool stuff on the new consoles nowadays, like the Castlevania collection and Contra collection, Castlevania Requiem, and the Sega Genesis collection on the other consoles, which is, in my opinion, pretty good. Of course, other people that are very particular have problems with them, but I think they're really good. Like Mark complains about them all the time. But the other one that is insanely exciting for me, and I had heard rumors from a couple of people I know that were involved with the TurboGrafx when it, you know, was still a thing, and that's when I was testing games for them and everything, that it sounded like... So Konami actually bought everything Hudson years ago. They acquired everything that was Hudson. So a lot of those TurboGrafx games you saw on the PS3 and on the PSP, they were actually released by Konami. Hudson wasn't officially a thing anymore. They still had some Hudson offices for a while, and we even had an interview on the podcast years ago when some of this stuff happened. It was when they were doing a new Bomberman. But Konami owned them. And let's be honest, Konami has a very bad track record for a lot of years. Especially during the PS3, PS4, even some of the PS2 era. And, you know, my favorite quote was, or my favorite thing to say was, Konami hates money. The decisions they made just made no sense. I've actually got I should have grabbed it. I've actually got a clone of a MAGA hat that says "Make Konami Great Again." But Konami's doing some really cool stuff. The Castlevania collections, the Contra collections are fantastic. I think M2 did the Castlevania collection. I don't know if they did the Contra one or not. I forgot to look that up. But they're fantastic. And it shows that Konami finally realized that they're missing out, number one, but they're pissing people off. A TurboGrafx Mini, though, is shocking to me. It's one of those darlings that it was insanely popular in Japan, but it never really took off here in the United States. There are rabid fans when you go out to Facebook. And the TurboGrafx people on Facebook and in some of the forums are really tough to deal with. Definitely looking through the rose-colored glasses. Not as bad as the Jaguar people, but they're rabid fans. And I'm one of them. I mean, I'm still trying to get an entire U.S. collection. I'm down to, I think, 12 games that I need, but they're all really overpriced and that sort of thing. But, see you, Farmer John. I'll release this later. This TurboGrafx collection and this TurboGrafx Mini is insanely exciting. And one of the reasons, for me at least, is if people take a chance on it, they might finally see that it was a great system. And it still is. I mean, I play TurboGrafx all the time still. So what they've released so far in terms of titles, and the funny thing is, if you go to the website, you actually see some other titles in the background. I wish I had that list that I made up. But R-Type is considered one of the best home conversions of that game. Actually, in Japan, it was on 2 cards because they didn't have a high enough meg card to hold the whole thing. So in Japan, it's actually 2 cards, a part 1 and a part 2. And in the U.S., they brought it on 1. New Adventure Island, which is a Hudson staple. There's some Adventure Islands on the NES and the SNES, etc. New Adventure Island on the Turbo is a lot of fun, and it's a great-looking game. Ninja Spirit, one of the best games on the system, bar none. And it's tough. There's this one level that it's later in the game where you have to fall down, and you're falling down this huge thing for a couple of minutes, and you basically you have to dodge everything, but it comes on the screen so fast that you have to memorize the whole thing. And it took me and my friends days to get through that, to memorize that level. The most exciting for me, especially exciting in terms of what they might announce in the future, is the fact that they're including Ys Book 1 and 2, which is a defining game on that system. It's a great RPG. There's 2 great RPGs that had been on other systems before, the Master System especially. But it's a CD game. and they're including a CD game on the TurboGrafx Mini, which that's huge because the TurboGrafx, one of the big things about it was it was the first system with a CD drive, and they had some amazing games on the CD. So I'm hoping now that maybe we'll see a Gate of Thunder and or a Lords of Thunder. Maybe we'll see some other RPGs. Maybe we'll see a US conversion of Ys 4, and let's hope we don't get Ys 3 because it's terrible. You know, there's so much that could happen, and if they do it right, it could be a lot of fun. Maybe they'll release the unreleased US version of Star Parody or US Fantasy, or the US version's Phantasy Star Soldier, and I know that because I have it because I was testing it. Also, Dungeon Explorer, which is a really fun game. You can play up to 4 or 5 people on it. It's interesting that they're including that because they're also releasing a turbo tap for the system, so you can do 5-player. Because I think they announced Bomberman 93 as well. I can't remember if they did or not yet, but that was one of the things about the system. You could do up to 5 players if you had a tap and you had all the controllers. What was frustrating though was the system only had 1 controller port, so even if you wanted to do 2 players, you had to have a tap. So you're spending all this additional money on it. But Dungeon Explorer is a lot of fun. A lot of times people kind of equate it with Gauntlet because it's an overhead perspective. It's very reminiscent of Gauntlet, but it's a lot deeper than Gauntlet. It's an actual RPG that you can play with friends, and it's fantastic. Alien Crush, which there's a remake on the Wii of all places, and the Wii remake is meh. Alien Crush was another defining title for the TurboGrafx. It's a alien kind of fantasy pinball game that was 2 screens high, and it was then followed up by Devil's Crush, which I like better. I have both. I like Devil's Crush a lot more. There was Devil's Crash on the Genesis as well, which isn't anywhere near as good as the TurboGrafx version. I hope that they do Devil's Crush. They haven't announced it yet, but that's the initial list right there. Now, I think that they need to, and on the website they have all these little games playing in the background, and I think I saw Final Soldier, which is a great shmup. I wouldn't be surprised. I think there's more than just this right now, but actually I should look to see if their website says anything else. But I think they announced at least one of the Bonk titles. Select your region. English. Why do they want my birth date? So the website can say, man, you're old. Hang on a second. And I think this is another one where they're going to do different titles in the Japanese version, the European version, and the US version. But where's the games list at? Oh, so this is all they've shown so far. But if you look in the background, there's this video plan. And, like, I see Castlevania Bloodlines. Or not Bloodlines, I'm sorry. Castlevania Dracula X Rondo of Blood, which would be a huge include. Which you can get on the PlayStation 4 right now, honestly. I see Final Soldier, I believe. I see Superstar Soldier, which isn't a surprise. I see... Oh, I thought there was another one. But there's some great games here, and they really need to include Blazing Lasers. That's a defining game. It needs to happen. It's my favorite TurboGrafx game. It just needs to happen. Probably the good thing about the TurboGrafx in the US at least is you don't have to worry about people bitching about no sports games, because there were really no sports games in the US. World Class Baseball I love. I don't expect that to come out, but if it does, it does. And it's a fun game. I still play it. It was Power League. Might have been the first Power League game. They were going to do a TV Sports Baseball, and it was going to be Power League 5, I believe, because they were showing it at CES one year with a home run derby. And if you got, I think, 5 home runs, you won a Turbo Express, which was a huge deal. But you don't have to worry about, like, on the SNES. You want Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, you want a Madden game or whatever, but you can't because of licensing. TurboGrafx, I mean, there were some good sports games, but nothing really licensed except for Madden on the CD. There's Hit the Ice is out for that one, which is a fun kind of NBA Jam-ish hockey game. But it's kind of nice that you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, they're showing China Warrior as well, which is funny because everybody bitches about that game. There's Bonk. So there's still a lot more that they can reveal. I hope they do this right. So far, I think what they've announced is fantastic. There's some great and defining games for the system, so I'm really looking forward to what they're doing with that. And I love the fact that they actually are releasing different versions for different regions. So they've got the little PC Engine core graphics for Japan. They've got basically the same model for Europe, because that's how it came out over there. And then they actually have the redesigned TurboGrafx 16 for the US. And when I say redesigned, I mean different than what they released in Japan, where the PC Engine was so big. The PC Engine was what the TurboGrafx is in Japan, and it was way more popular than even the Famicom. I mean, it was one of the most popular systems in Japan ever. So there's a lot they can do. Hopefully Konami doesn't screw this up. I'm very excited. I really hope that they do a couple more CD games. Like I said, Gate of Thunder would be humongous. It's just a solid shmup. Lords of Thunder. There's always these debates, like which is better, Lord of Thunder or Gate of Thunder. I love both of them. I love the soundtrack in both of them, but Lords of Thunder, I love the driving rock in it, the metal music in it, and they did a Genesis version, a Sega CD version. It's terrible. So I would really love to see the TurboGrafx CD version come out over here. I really would. But I'm excited. I hope they price it right, and I hope they get the rest of the library correct. I would love to see Newtopia 1 and 2, which are Zelda clones, but they're fantastic. I would love to see Blazing Lasers, as would everybody else, I believe. I would love to see them do the US version of Magical Chase. Number one, because it's a great game. It's my favorite cute-em-up. I have the Japanese version, and I love the game to death. The US version is the most rare US TurboGrafx game, and the problem is people that own it know that. So they try to ask for like $5-6 for the game on eBay. And it's ridiculous. And the reason being is that it was the last US game published as well. And it sucks because I love that game, and I would love them to actually put that game on the TurboGrafx Mini for two reasons. Number one, to get it into more people's hands, because it's a really fun game and it's beautiful. But number two, maybe to take some of the value away from these idiots on eBay. These people that are just trying to prey on those that are trying to get these games. Because it's a game that I need still. I need the US version for my full collection. And I'm not willing to pay $5,000 for it. I'm just not. It's ridiculous. So I would love to see that. I would love to see a Devil's Crush. Man, I can't think. Well, even Aeroblasters would be really good. There was a Genesis version of that as well, but Aeroblasters is a lot of fun. I would love to see the TurboGrafx version of Raiden, which is a great series to this day. And the Turbo version's a lot of fun. It'd be cool to see like maybe Soldier Blade, or some more of the shooters that made the TurboGrafx what it was. I mean, it was a huge system in terms of shmups. They had some fantastic games on it. So, yeah, I love the fact that he did it. I love the fact that they announced it at E3. I wasn't so happy that they had some random person from Kind of Funny Games there that doesn't know what the F they're talking about. Didn't have any intelligent questions, nothing. I think they should have called me. I'd have been the perfect person to have on that. But it's a great start so far. But the fact that they're showing Castlevania Dracula X, it's the best Castlevania game. I mean, it's my opinion, but it's a lot of people's opinion. That is the best Castlevania game ever made. It's so good, and damn that, great gameplay. It's fun because it's a branching game. So you think that you fall through and die, and you don't. You actually go into a different branch when you fall through. It's the prequel to Symphony of the Night, which a lot of PlayStation gamers love. And you can get it right now. They actually put it in that Castlevania Requiem. Castlevania Requiem is Rondo Blood / Dracula X. And it's Symphony of the Night. So, and it's different than Dracula X on the SNES, which isn't that good. So, highly recommended. Get your pre-orders in for that, because I think you'll be happy with it. Next, I mean, I've harped on these quite a bit. I've streamed them. Hey there, Jarlask. FPGAs. And I know I talked about these even when I was doing the podcast originally, but I've really fallen into that trap. So what is FPGA? FPGA is field programmable gate array. And what does that mean? For years, a lot of us have played games in emulators, be it on our phone, be it on our Android tablet, be it on the Shield TV, which is fantastic. I'm even emulating Dreamcast and Saturn on that thing and PlayStation 1. But they're software. The emulators are all software running on different platforms. So where you run into problems, is when your PC doesn't have as good of a CPU, or your PC has an AMD CPU instead of Intel, or your PC has a sound card that has weird drivers that the emulators don't like, or your PC doesn't have enough RAM, or your PC blah, 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 blah. You're always worried about the architecture, what you have that's compatible with that emulator. Or even the emulator itself may not be compatible with a specific game. You see that a lot in MAME. Because they're trying to do this all-in-one emulator that can kind of cover everything, but a lot of, especially arcade machines, had specialized hardware. They had a special sound chip, or they had whatever. What the FPGAs do is the FPGA is written, it's all software, but you're writing it to this FPGA device, which is a programmable hardware solution. So instead of having actual circuits, like physical, circuit leads and everything else, you're programming this FPGA to simulate a chip. So one of the big simulations is the 68000 processor, which is used in things like the Atari ST, the Amiga, the Genesis, etc., etc. So there's limitations. Like so far, I don't think I've seen anything 32-bit on FPGA. It's been all 16-bit and below. But what you can expect for a well-written, it's called a core. What you can expect with a well-written core is almost perfect compatibility. There may be a thing here or there that doesn't work, but there's active development on a lot of these cores, and they can usually fix those problems. But they're actually simulating the hardware itself, the console itself, the arcade hardware itself. Like someone right now is writing a core for the old Capcom arcade game Commando. And they've been showing progress here and there and, trying to get things to work. But it's really cool, and there was this project called Myst for a long time. It's insanely expensive, and I never even gave it a second thought. But now there's this open source project called the Mister, and that's what I've got. And I could have built it myself. You just have to buy the parts and slap it together. But I didn't know if there was soldering involved, and I can't solder. So I bought this. It's a website called MrAddons.com. It's this guy, Porkchop Express, that runs it. Did a fantastic job. Where the problem kind of lies with a Mister device, there's not much documentation. I mean, there's some YouTube videos here and there, that sort of thing, but it's really, there's no definitive place to go and look for stuff. I even asked that Porkchop Express guy a couple of questions. Like, I didn't understand why a couple things were the way they were. But it was fun for me because I like to tinker. And, I've got the jailbreak firmware for the Super NT, which is the Super Nintendo FPGA console from Analog. I've got the jailbreak firmware for the Analog Mega SG, which is their Sega Genesis FPGA device. But like even the Mega SG, the jailbreak is really cool because it also adds support to be able to play Game Gear games, Master System games, and for some reason ColecoVision games, which makes kind of sense because ColecoVision, I think, was like a Sega design or something like that. Sega was involved somehow. But I even sent the info and a bunch of instructions to Joel, my ex-podcast co-host, Joel. and got him up and running. And the cool thing about the jailbreak is mainly that you can put an SD card in and you can load ROMs right off the SD card, which is nice. I mean, you don't have to swap out the cards every time. The Mega SG, though, one thing that they've done differently and that's exciting as hell with the jailbreak, the Mega SG out of the box without the jailbreak supports the Sega CD. And I actually happen to have an extra Sega CD model because it went bad. So I actually had a guy in Milwaukee, this guy calls himself NES Matt, NES Matt, repair it. And he recapped it, repaired the whole thing. So now I have a dedicated CD unit just for the Mega SG. And the Mega SG works really well with the CD unit. But the cool thing about the jailbreak was that it then allows you to load different BIOS files, because the one thing that sucks about well, not the one thing, but one of the things that sucks about the Sega CD is that it was region locked, which is absurd. So Sega had released on card and CD this pretty kick-ass baseball game. And without thinking about it, because it's been so many years, and I forgot that it was region locked, I found the game on eBay and I bought the CD version of the game. Then I get it here and it didn't work and whatnot. But the jailbreak allows me to actually load the Japanese BIOS, which I was already doing in an emulator on the Shield TV. So I was able to play that game finally, but it was cool to be able to play it on the real hardware, and it's a really fun baseball game that I wish they would have released in the US, but I understand why they didn't. It's a completely licensed game. I don't think it has all the stadiums, but I think it has most of the players. But it's a really fun baseball game. And it was great because being able to load up that BIOS and actually play a Japanese CD game on the Mega SG, the video output is fantastic. I got some great pointers in terms of what to set all my video and audio settings from a GameSack video that Dave put out, and also some of the stuff that John Linneman talked about from Digital Foundry. It's a great little console, and if you like the Genesis at all, I can't recommend the Mega SG highly enough. It's really, really well done. And it's funny because the Genesis core on the Mr. FPGA is pretty good. It's actually better than pretty good. It's really good, but if you've ever played on the Mega SG, you realize how much you're getting extra with that, because Kevtris, that developed that core, put so much into it in terms of being able to tweak all the video settings, all the audio settings, being able to make sure that you're using the audio chip from the first Genesis, because the Genesis 2 actually had a different sound chip, and a couple of games actually play worse on the Genesis 2. They play slower. So just from the amount of options you have on the Mega SG, it's head and shoulders above what you can get on the Mr. FPGA, which is incredibly solid already. I mean, it really is. It's the core on there has been getting better and better since I bought the FPGA. When I first got it, the Genesis core was kind of in flux, and they've really improved the heck out of it, especially that SVP chip support that I forget the guy's name, but it's on the video. It was really neat that he went through the trouble to add support for this math coprocessor in one game on one cartridge, and it was really cool they did that. So compatibility is very high on that thing right now. But now I don't just have the Mega SG, I don't just have the Super NT, I don't just have the Mr. FPGA, I also have an FPGA device that I've been obsessed with, and I'm still in the middle of working on it. And I've been streaming with it too when I'm doing my testing, but it's a device that is called the PSIO, PSIO, and it's for the original PlayStation. It's from a developer in Australia. Well, Stone Age Gamer down in, I think he's in Ohio, started carrying these in the US because they're kind of expensive. And Stone Age Gamer started carrying it, but the problem is you have to put a mod chip in the PlayStation as well, which my original launch day PlayStation has a mod chip in it already to allow me to play games from Japan. But the mod chip for this one is unique, and I can't solder. So Stone Age Gamer actually started offering original PlayStation consoles that are pre-modded so that they would just work. And what this device does, and here I can... So this is it. And it plugs into, you have to have an earlier model PlayStation that has the parallel port. So that's what this is right here. This plugs into the parallel port in the back of the PlayStation. So if you have the second generation PlayStation, whatever, it won't work. But what this does is this simulates the CD drive in the PlayStation. So the mod chip actually will detect that this is plugged in, and it'll bypass the CD drive in the PlayStation and send everything to this. And what you can do then is you can take CD images of all your PlayStation games and put them on an SD card. So, but there's some weirdness, like how it handles audio, CD audio, that sort of thing. It's really weird how they did it. But so I've been actually going through all the games I have on here one by one and making sure that audio works. And I've been keeping a spreadsheet on what I need to fix. Because apparently they have a utility that'll fix a lot of the audio problems, but I haven't gotten that far yet. But this little device is pretty cool. And it's, along with the Pound Technologies HDMI adapter that they have for the PS1, PS2, the same adapter works for both systems. I've been playing a lot more PlayStation lately. Original PlayStation. And with their HDMI, so Pound Technologies has done a couple of adapters. They did one for the Dreamcast. They did one for the SNES. The SNES one's pretty good, especially if you don't want to mod your system. The Dreamcast one, I don't like. I'm spoiled with VGA, and it's definitely nowhere near as good as the VGA connection. But it was convenience. You know, you have a lot of the newer TVs that have HDMI. You can plug it in and go. The Pound Technology HDMI adapter for PS1, PS2, I love. I think it's fantastic. Colors look really good. The signal's really good. I've been really liking it. And one of the big improvements they made over the Dreamcast cable, the Dreamcast cable is actually a hardwired HDMI cable. So it goes from the adapter directly out to HDMI. Whereas the SNES and the PS1/PS2 cables are mainly a dongle that you plug HDMI into. So if you ever have a cable go bad, you're kind of screwed with that Dreamcast one. Whereas with these, they're just a dongle, and I love it. But this SIO device, I'm going to stream more of it really soon, maybe even tomorrow, to go through more of the games and check to make sure they're all working. But really, really cool, and it's definitely got me back into playing old PlayStation games. Like, I did a stream for Crash Team Racing, the original one on the PlayStation, and that's how I did it. I did it off this. So the thing I love about this is the PlayStation always had a problem with heat dissipation. And my launch day system, if I play a game with any FMV, what happens? Like everybody's. Video starts skipping because it's overheating, so you have to flip the system over. This allows me to play these games and not put any wear and tear on my CD drive. Sure, it's piracy, I'm sure. I own a lot of PlayStation games, though, and they're old. But I tell you, it's a couple $100. But man, there's so many good games on the PlayStation to this day, and they look kind of dated and whatnot, but I don't care. I like it. I like playing on the PlayStation. What sucks right now is my PS2 is kind of broken because the CD drive, the DVD drive doesn't want to pull back in. It just got stuck, opened up. So I got to try to find somebody to fix that. But FPGA device as well. Really hard to get until Stone Age Gamer started selling them. And I'm glad they did. And I'm glad I got this. This is one of my favorite devices, is this SIO device. So if you want to get back to the PlayStation, whatever, give it a try. If you're comfortable modding, this comes with the mod chip when you order it. So the mod chip will show up. Apparently it's pretty easy to do. I bought another PlayStation pre-modded. It didn't cost that much more for that. But yeah, really, really like this thing. So, and then one of the videos I'm going to do soon, if I get the gumption, I got to record a bunch of footage, but I went down to my storage unit. So I haven't been on the podcast for a long time, but I moved back to my house. I'm back in my house, and I still have stuff in storage, which is about 2 hours away, down by Rock's house. And I was down by my parents this weekend for my mom's birthday, And right now, the padlocks that I have on the storage unit have been literally stuck. They will not open. You put the key in, and the mechanics in it just will not open. So I decided I'm going to try to go down and work this thing open and get into the storage unit to kind of take stock of what's still in there, which there isn't a lot. When I moved back to my house, we went to the storage unit and got a lot of stuff out of there. But I got this WD-40, this special blend that's for like getting through rust or whatever. I didn't know what was in these locks, but I figured something that's penetrating might help. So I got that, sprayed it all over the lock, and I got one of them open, which was huge. I couldn't believe, because both of these locks stopped working. Both of them. So I got in there, and I forgot that in my storage I still had a couple of consoles that I had acquired a couple of years ago. They were still in storage. I've never, ever powered these things up. One being the Bally Astrocade, which was out around the same time as the 2600. There weren't a lot of games for it. I want to say like 20 or 30 games, like maybe 30. But the big thing about the Bally Astrocade was the graphics chip on it was pretty different. It didn't do any sprite technology whatsoever, so all of it was artwork. And it had a pretty limited palette, but the palette of colors it had, the colors were really vibrant. And the funny thing is, the Mr. FPGA, they actually have a core for the Bally Astrocade on there. The problem is, and I wish it's still in my car, but the problem is the controller is kind of like the Fairchild Channel F, where it's a vertical controller, kind of like this flashlight. It's a vertical controller that has a trigger. I think it has a couple triggers. But on the top, it has a dial, so you can twist it back and forth, but you can also move that dial like another D-pad. And the problem with that is emulators and FPGA, because they've never found a good way to emulate that on a modern controller. So like on the FPGA I have right now, by default, I use a wired Xbox 360 controller. It just works. It's not the greatest controller in the world, but it works. But also for the FPGA, there's this company that I can't remember the name of right now, but they actually make this dongle system that allows you to plug in a bunch of different old controllers. So I actually have a dongle that, and they have a multi-tap version of it as well, but I just have the single-player version, and I have dongles for some reason, the Sega Saturn. I don't know why I got that. Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis, SNES, TurboGrafx, etc., etc. So I can actually plug in my TurboGrafx joystick or controller and use it on these games. And it'll work on games from other consoles as long as you have enough buttons and whatnot. But it's really cool that they've done that. So the big problem with the Bally Astrocade on the FPGA is the controller. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to find a VCR at like a Goodwill and hook the Bally Astrocade up that I have. I can't remember when I bought that thing a few years ago. I got it really cheap. And I got it boxed, but the box is in terrible shape. But I want to kind of do a deep dive on that system and kind of show people what it can do. And there's a couple of games that, for the time, looked really cool. But Bally basically said they didn't want to be in the home market anymore because that's right around the same time the crash started happening. The other one that I have that I had never heard of when I was younger, surprisingly enough, Emerson actually did a console called the Arcadia 2000. And a local game store that I go to all the time, every time I would go in there, they bug me about it. Like, you really need that system, you know. Oh, yeah, you really need that system. So we finally talked about it. And I ended up getting it because it also came with, like, I want to say 10 or 12 boxed games in perfect shape. Everything was in perfect shape. They even included the box that it was shipped in to the store. Like, that's how weird it was. But the Emerson Arcadia is an interesting console because the controllers are really similar to the Intellivision with the disc on the bottom of it. And I need to do more research because I haven't really read up on it for a couple of years, but I don't remember what it has in terms of capabilities and how different it was from the 2600 and if it was even close to the Intellivision, you know, that kind of stuff. But I want to get a VCR so I can hook up, because both of these obviously work off the RF connector. And I can't believe that no one has developed like an adapter to go from the RF, the old antenna, the channel 3 connector, the screw, to go from that to even composite video and audio. I can't believe nobody's done that. So right now, the best way to convert that signal, and you get a lot of noise, but get an old VCR. Get an old VCR that has a tuner in it. Tune that VCR to channel 3, and the output is through composite video. And then I can use my... then I can use my RetroTink 2X, which is a great little device. It's got component in, it's got S-Video in, and it's got composite in. And it outputs to micro HDMI. And I really like this device. I might actually buy a second one to plug my Laserdisc player into, honestly. But it's this guy out in California, I think. And I just happened across this one day. He was in pre-production of them. And I pre-bought it. It didn't cost that much. And it works great. I've got some videos up on my Retro Nation channel showing how good this thing is. N64 looks great in it. It's not RGB, obviously. But it's good enough. And a really low noise. Neo Geo through component. Looks a little weird. But this is kind of a nice alternative, even if you have an OSSC. Because OSSC, one of the big problems of the OSSC is that it doesn't support S-Video. And I love S-Video. I had an S-Video TV for years, and I love it. And this actually has an S-Video port. And for me, this is huge. Because I ran S-Video for the SNES. I ran S-Video for my modded Neo Geo. S-Video in like the 3DO. I also got a Nuon now, which I don't have any games for yet. So that's why I haven't even booted the Nuon up yet. And I can talk about the Nuon some other time. But like the Pippin, there's a lot of stuff that has S-Video that looks really fantastic with this. So, yeah. It's weird. I really wish somebody would make that converter to go from RF to composite, and then I could plug that composite right into here instead of having to go through the VCR as an intermediary. But that's what it is. So anyway, more on that Bally Astrocade when I start getting stuff. I might start using the FPGA to record some video. I played 2 games yesterday. One is Galaxian, I think it was. And then there was another clone that I played. But there's like a Defender clone. There's, I think it's Night Driver on the 2600 where you have the little white post coming at you. And it's a driving game. The one on the Astrocade's really smooth. Crazy Climber, which was a great arcade game. But getting those controls, because they want you to use the 2 of the Astrocade controllers to do, right hand, left hand, and getting that to work on a modern controller doesn't work very well. So it's a neat little console, but there aren't that many games for it. The Emerson, though, I want to hook that up and record stuff too, and I don't have a core for that or anything. But there's some neat stuff, and they're kind of rare consoles, especially that Emerson. That's the MGC group, the museum group. I brought it up, and I don't think anybody in that group has that Emerson. They were all kind of jealous. So they seem jealous, at least. So, yeah, really cool that I got those. Anyway, last thing I want to talk about for old shit is an upcoming console that's going to be emulating a lot of stuff, and that's the PolyMega. So the PolyMega is an interesting design. It's got modules that you plug into it, and those modules support things like the SNES, the Genesis, the NES, and the TurboGrafx, so you can actually play Hue cards. But what really sets the PolyMega apart, in my mind, and the reason that I actually spent the money on it, is that it's also going to do CD systems. So it's actually going to handle, I believe, Sega CD, but Saturn. They're actually emulating Saturn, and it looks really good. They're emulating TurboGrafx CD, and they're emulating Neo Geo CD, which I have one. But that's big. That's really big because they're bringing these old CD systems into the modern era with HDMI, but they're also doing filtering, that sort of thing. What I'm kind of bummed about is that it's all emulators. It's not FPGA at all. from what it sounds like, though, they really assembled a good team. They got the guy that built one of the more popular Saturn emulators. He's actually working on their system. So they're not just getting some random college kids or people from like Taiwan or something. It sounds like they've really assembled some good talent, and I'm excited. I'm excited for being able to play the Saturn, especially. I've been doing that in emulators lately on the Shield TV, and some of those games look fantastic with new filters. So it's expensive as fuck, the PolyMega, and they made you pay up front, which worries me a little bit. But Jeremy Parrish got to see it and play with it. John Linneman got to mess with it at E3. And so far, reports are very positive, so I'm a little happy about that. I don't know when they're going to ship, though. I think it's the end of the summer. But be ready if you're interested in the PolyMega. I will definitely stream the fuck out of that thing. They're doing some really interesting stuff, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. Sean asks, are you playing anything more current, or are you all in retro games? It's funny. There's a couple months where I didn't touch my PlayStation at all, my PS4. I don't know what it is, but I really got into a retro fever. Am I playing anything current? Yeah, I'm playing Gran Turismo Sport a lot lately. F1 2019 is awesome. The problem is I am not good with F1, Formula 1 at all. Like, not knowing what the rules are, not knowing some of the foibles of Formula 1. But F1 2019 from Codemasters, man, is it good. They actually have volumetric lighting. So if you're doing like a night race and it's really humid or it's foggy, the lights at the track will actually indicate that. You'll actually see kind of a fog or a haze. Not just that. I mean, really great shadowing, great reflections all around, but also it just plays really well, and it's so fast because it's Formula 1. I'm liking it way more than I ever thought I would like a Formula 1 game. Because I liked Formula 1 2018. I liked F1 2018. But I didn't play it a lot. And 2019 I'm actually playing. Not as much as GT Sport. GT Sport, I'm so happy with... originally when they announced that GT Sport was going to be a platform, quote-unquote, and they were going to do all this esports stuff and really try to make it an esports platform, all of us, including me, rolled our eyes. Yeah, sure. We've seen how they've handled online in the past with GT and blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what, I'm so happy that they really have turned it into something with their partnership with FIA. And I'll admit it, I watch GT Sport events online all the time. I was watching one from November of 2018 this morning. I was just watching it on YouTube. They're doing some fantastic stuff with it. And the part about GT also is that a few months ago, somebody sent me one of the Thrustmaster TGT racing wheels for review, which I still haven't reviewed. Not written, at least. But it's the Gran Turismo branded Thrustmaster wheel. And they actually have some specific features in the wheel that only work for Gran Turismo Sport, which is kind of silly when you think about it, but at the same time, the support is fantastic. You got these little dials that you can adjust your brake balance, or you can adjust different things depending on the car, and it's right on the wheel. You don't have to go to menus and try to find it. Also, the wheel itself not only has amazing force feedback, but it actually kind of has a rumble feature as well that makes a big difference. I mean, you can actually feel when you change a gear. You can feel not just from force feedback, but from the rumble in it. You can feel the different cracks in the pavement. You can feel all these different things, and it's tough to explain. But when you're actually playing with it, it's nuts. And I've been running the Thrustmaster T300 for a long time, and I reviewed it on the website. I love it. But then you go to this thing, and for Gran Turismo Sport, it's amazing. I mean, I've never actually used anything from Fanatic or any of the other like really custom wheels, But for me, I mean, this is the same wheel they use at all these Gran Turismo events. And you can see why. I mean, not only because of the branding and I'm sure the marketing deal that they signed with Thrustmaster, but it's a great wheel. And it even has a leatherette covering on the wheel. And that's one thing I love over the T300, because the T300 has like this rubbery, plasticky covering that kind of smells after you use it for a while. I don't know if the oils in your hand get into it or whatever. And you almost want to buy a cover for it or start using racing gloves, because it kind of gets irritating after a while. But this leather covering they have on that TGT is awesome. And the cool thing is it works with all the handbrake that they just brought out, the Sparco branded handbrake that they brought out. That works. The TH, whatever the hell it's called, the shifter, the manual shifter works with the TGT. So the T300, one of the problems was, for me at least, was that it only came with the 2 pedal setup, and the pedals, even with modding, they didn't really feel great. They felt good, but they didn't feel great. And you can buy the 3 pedal setup that they offered separately, which I don't need a clutch, because if I'm going to shift, I'll use the paddle shifters. But the pedals themselves are better quality on that 3 pedal setup. But the TGT actually comes with a fantastic 3 pedal setup that have great tension. The brake actually has some cool stuff, and you can mod it if you want. You can put that little stopper on the back of it. But it's cool. And what sucks is, and people have seen these in the videos I put up lately, I love Gran Turismo Sport to death, but I still suck online. I'm terrible. And I just can't seem to get beyond that one point. Also for current games, the Sonic Team Racing from Sega is awesome. It's really, really good. Probably my favorite in the Sonic Kart Racing series. I think it's just really well done. Also playing the Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, but I'm having a really hard time with the AI in that one. Apparently I'm playing it wrong. I'm supposed to chain nitros or something, and I have no idea how to do that, so I got to do some reading. I want to get back to Spider-Man on PS4. I'm planning on doing that soon, because I kind of stopped because of the stuff. I started playing other stuff. Getting back to Battlefield 5 now, because I kind of stopped playing that for a while. Playing everything on current systems, but I've been playing some Battlefield 5 lately with Stoff and just playing on my own. I've been playing a lot of Black Ops 4 too. I don't know why, but Black Ops 4, it's kind of one of those situations where I just want mindless FPS fun, and that's where I go. Yeah, and also Crash Team Racing, I want to go back to it. The new one is awesome. It's beautiful. And you can tell that a lot of love went into it. But I can't get past the second race, because you have to take first place. I cannot do it. I tried for over an hour in a stream, and I can never finish that race in first. So I don't know if the AI is too good, or if I suck, which I'm probably sure I do, or I'm playing it wrong, like I think, because somebody on the chat said that I have to chain nitros together, which I have no idea how to do. So I want to play it more. I want it to be good, because what I have played and what I've seen and what I've experienced has been awesome. But I'm frustrated with it, so I've stopped playing it for a little while. Also been playing the Castlevania collections, the Contra collection. Been dabbling a little bit more with Tempest 4000, which is phenomenal. It's really good. Also played Star Trek Online the other day, and that reminded me why I don't play free-to-play MMOs like that. It's neat. Technically, from a technical standpoint, it's amazing, but not my thing. I want to get back to the Division 2. Obviously, everyone has passed me by like always. That whole crew, the Destiny crew that's playing that game, went right by me. Been dabbling in Destiny 2 again. I think it's still a fantastic game. I just haven't been very social lately either. I don't know what it is, and it's not a conscious thing that I'm not being social. It's just I haven't really been gaming much lately on the new platforms. I don't know what to tell you. Like even Xbox One, all I play now, if I play anything, is backward compatible stuff. And a little bit of Crackdown 3. Which, I think Crackdown 3 is fantastic overall. It doesn't have the feel of the first one, but it's way better than Crackdown 2. But, yeah, it's been a lot of retro stuff for me lately, if I've been playing anything at all. I've just really been focusing on the retro stuff. I don't know what it is. I've got a fever right now. And I'm actually rearranging my office soon, probably today even. Well, maybe tomorrow if I got to edit this all together. But I want to rearrange some stuff. So I got a G-SCART Lite. It's a SCART switch, RGB SCART switch that's auto-sensing, and it has 8 ports on it. But I need to put a new rack in the corner where my old CRT TV used to be. And I need to put all my SCART consoles over there, like the Jaguar I've got a SCART cable for, the Saturn, the regular Genesis with the Sega CD and 32X and everything. Because that's the one thing that I'm kind of bummed about with the Mega SG, is that it doesn't support the 32X. I get why. Because of the stupid cabling, you have to get it to work. But it would have been nice if the FPGA itself could handle 32X. But apparently it can't. So I've got all these SCART connected consoles that I can put through the switch and then run all those into the OSSC. So like the TurboGrafx, I've got the FPGA for that, the Super SSD 3. That does SCART output as well. So I've got like, I want to say 5 or 6 SCART connected consoles. So I want to get all those hooked up through the switch and get all the cables running and all that, but it's going to take some time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time focusing lately, and now that I don't have a job, I have to look for a job and all that shit too. But last few months, I'm still working on the Extra Life stuff, and my MacBook Pro died, and I had no way, like all the games are on my dining room table, and I had no way to easily even catalog everything. So my mom got a new Pixel book for her birthday this last weekend, so I swiped her old Dell laptop so that I have a real laptop that I can sit down at the table and catalog everything and start putting packages together. So hopefully I'll have Extra Life stuff done in a couple weeks. I just don't think people understand how much is involved with that raffle. It's something that you don't want looming over you, and I've had it looming over me way too long. But anyway, let's see. Talked about Crash Team. Oh, yeah. So one of the other things is we have an affiliate program thing with Loot Crate. And I never asked for this part of it, but every month they send me the Loot Crate. And they send it to my parents' house, which is funny. And I have tried to change the address with them, and they still send them to my parents. So the problem was, when I was living in the apartment, I didn't want to open these Loot Crates up and lose everything, and I didn't have a lot of space there. So I've never opened a lot of these Loot Crates. The only one I opened the one PAX that I got, and I opened the South Park one that I bought separately, because they did this really cool South Park one. So I have a ton of unopened Loot Crates, and I don't even think I have them all here at my house. I think a couple of them are still at my parents' or in storage even. But I've got to have at least 20. So I'm thinking about doing an unboxing video, and it'll be a regular video. Somebody mentioned today, like, do a live stream, but the problem with the live stream is that I want to do 2 different cameras. One that I can kind of focus on a tabletop and show everybody what's in there. And I don't know if I can live stream that effectively. I might play around with the setup the next couple of days and see if I can do it. But if you're interested, let us know in the forums, let us know on Twitter, let us know on Facebook on the page if you're interested, and I'll schedule something, and I'll unbox all these Loot Crates at once. And it's a lot. I mean, the whole top shelf in my closet in my office, like half of that shelf is all full of Loot Crates stacked on top of each other. So if you're interested, there's some neat stuff. I really like the t-shirts especially, and I don't have one on today, but I really like the t-shirts. A lot of them come with socks. So for one of those crazy sock people. And then headphones. So I've got a few different headphones I've been playing with lately. And one of the ones that's kind of a surprise, it's an older one. It's the Razer Thresher wireless headphones that I don't think I ever got around to writing a review. I have to look it up to see if I did, but I took them to my parents because I was using the Sony Platinums, which I don't really like. They were the ones with the 3D audio, the bullshit 3D audio that they've supported in like 2 games. But I used the Platinums at my parents because they were easy. The microphone's really sensitive. The virtual 3D audio can be cool at times, but they're not even doing profiles for them anymore. I don't think they ever did a Horizon Zero Dawn profile, but they did an Uncharted 4 profile. Whoopee. I mean, it was cool, but they're not supporting it. Sony's becoming the new Google. But I decided I had these Razer Threshers sitting here, and I wasn't using them, so I took them to my parents' house. The thing I didn't like about the Razer Threshers was that, they've got a base that connects to the PlayStation 4, and you hook the optical cable up and the USB for power. But you have to turn the freaking thing on, the base unit for it. You have to actually hit a power button and turn them on. And to me, that's really kind of against what having wireless headphones is all about. Wireless headphones for me are, I keep them on the side table at my couch, and they're always charging from the outlet, and I can just turn them on and go. But now Big Fat Glenn has to get up, walk over and turn on the bass, and I just didn't like it, so I never really used them. But I've started using them at my parents', and something I noticed about the Razer Threshers, number one, they're fantastic. The microphone's fantastic. They're fantastic headphones. And they have humongous drivers in them. I think they got 50 millimeter drivers in them, and just a lot of bass, but really good separation of different tones, like from high, low to mid. I was playing Black Ops 4, and I was noticing, like on Turtle Beach headphones, a lot of the newer ones have different modes, and including one called like superhuman hearing or something. So it'll actually drown everything else out so you can hear footsteps or really light sounds. And it works really well in Turtle Beach, but the Razer Threshers, I don't think there's any modes in it, but I was having a really good luck hearing footsteps, and it was helping me in that game. Like if I was trying to capture a point in domination, because that's all I ever play in that game, I could hear somebody coming, and I was able to take them out. So Razer Thresher, fantastic. If you can put up with turning the bass on, I can't recommend them highly enough. They're really good. What's this? Renegade Seraph X back full time? Nah, I just got bored today. I had a lot to say. The other ones that I've been using are these Turtle Beach, like Elite Pros or whatever. They're wired, which I was going to use them for Extra Life, and then I realized they're wired, and I didn't use them. But they've got this, external dongle thing, and then you have wired headphones that go to it, which I love. All right, that's these right here. So number one, really comfortable, great padding, microphone is fantastic, but it connects to your phone via Bluetooth. And the cool thing is they've got this Turtle Beach management app, and you can actually adjust like how high your monitor level is. You can manage what type of surround mode you want. You can manage the bass level, the tone level. You can actually listen to music through your phone through Bluetooth. You can do phone calls on there, which it's funny because my phone always connects to this thing when I come to my office now. But they're awesome, and I don't remember the price. But man, I'll tell you, if you can work with wired headphones, and these aren't wired to your controller, they're completely standalone, plugged into the back of your PS4, and the headphones plug into this little bass unit. But if you can handle that, I wouldn't have any other headphones. Honestly, they're awesome. And the cool thing is the cable's really long, so the couch in my office here is about 8 or 10 feet away from the TV. And I can sit on the couch with these headphones on. No problem. They're fantastic. They've got a mute right on the cable, so you don't have to hit a button to do mute or anything. Volume is handled through the bass unit, though, so if you want to adjust the volume, you have to get up and do it. It doesn't have dials in the back or anything. but they're awesome. They're really, really good. But at the same time, I would never attempt to even connect these in my living room, because lengthwise it'd be fine, but my dog walks back and forth all the time. She would knock this thing loose all the time. But here in my office, they're perfect. Perfect headphones. And you're going to get beefier sound because you're not over wireless. You're not over 2.4 or 5 gigahertz wireless or whatever. And the neat thing about them connecting up with Bluetooth, because the Turtle Beach wireless that I use downstairs, they connect to my phone as well, but the Bluetooth support on this one is way better. And listening to music is really good, and yeah, they're freaking awesome. So highly recommended. So let's talk PS5 a little bit. Let's just call it PS5. And I hate that we have to say that. I hate that we have to say, well, we think it's going to be PlayStation 5. And the only reason we say that is because they were stupid enough to call their new handheld the Vita instead of the PSP 2. Yeah. Vita. If they didn't do that, we wouldn't have to say, well, we think they're going to call it the PS5. I think it's also because of Microsoft's stupidity in naming their consoles. But the main thing that I'm hearing right now about the new PlayStation is the fact that one of the launch titles is probably going to be a new Gran Turismo. GT Sport is doing extremely well. And the graphics engine and the modeling that they've used for the cars themselves, the suspension, whatnot, they've actually built with the intention of moving that to a new console. And quite frankly, that excites the shit out of me. I think GT Sport has turned into something so damn good. I think that they've finally done quite a bit in terms of fulfilling people's expectations. I think it looks fantastic. It plays incredibly great. I'm excited. So the latest rumor I'm hearing from people is that a new Gran Turismo Sport, or whatever they're going to call it, will be a launch title on PS5. I will be on that like stink on shit. Totally all over that. I've had such just a newfound love for Gran Turismo with Sport. I always liked GT5 and GT6. I was one of the few people that liked GT6. Whereas you would go to the forums or go to GT Planet and they would all bag on GT6 for whatever reason, because I always thought it was really good. I mean, there's always going to be people complaining about whatever. The thing with GT6 or GT Sport that people are complaining about, rightfully so, is the slow pace that they're bringing out new cars and new tracks especially. I mean, they're still releasing new tracks, but it's like 3-4 months at a time between tracks. And I really wish they would step that up a little bit. But, I mean, what's there I love. I really do. I love it. I just wish I was better at it. So, and I've mentioned some of this other stuff before, but people were asking me what I was playing, and I think I hit everything. Virtua Racing on the Switch, which is awesome, and I really wish they bring it out on PS4, but honestly, I bought the Japanese version of Virtua Racing because they didn't bring it out over here, which I don't even know if it's out yet in the US. I think it's close, but it's not out yet. Creating a Japanese account on the Switch and using it for the store is so freaking easy, by the way. You don't have to hack nothing. So easy. The only problem I had was with payment, because none of my cards would work, and I couldn't get PayPal to work for whatever reason. I don't know if it wanted me to verify something with PayPal or what, but it didn't want to use PayPal. So I actually went to PlayAsia, who we have an affiliate link for, by the way. I actually went to PlayAsia and bought a prepaid like Switch store card. But Virtua Racing has always been one of my favorite racing games in arcade. When I lived in Kansas City, up at Fun Factory at Oak Park Mall, they had the full cabinet version with the airbags that would press into you and you would take a turn and whatnot. I've just always loved that game. And the Switch version is incredibly accurate to not only the arcade game, but the improvements they made. Some people are complaining about the color palette because they kind of brighten the colors up a little bit. I love it. It's got all the audio. It's really, really, really accurate. And it's also kind of neat because you can do a split screen thing and do up to like 8 players split screen, which is nuts and I'll never do, but it's crazy. It also has online racing, which I haven't tried yet because I don't want to play anybody in Japan. But I was never that hot on the Switch. I played every now and then. But virtual racing has me playing the Switch a lot. And speaking of the Switch, today, Nintendo announced the Switch Lite, which looks like a multicolored Vita, in my opinion, coming in September for $199. The controllers are not detachable. The controller, which means there's no infrared controller stuff, which means there's no motion controller stuff. You can connect up, I think they said you can connect up a Pro controller, which was duh, but you can actually use other Switch controllers as well, whatever they call them. You can use external ones if you want to do that stuff. But it's funny because they've really changed the landscape of what the Switch is going to do because there's no dock. It's made to only be a handheld. So you can't dock it for TV use, that's all I use my Switch for. I do not play my Switch as a handheld. Ever. Ever. The only time I ever did that was when I was on a long trip. I took my Switch on a plane and I was playing Golf Story, the little RPG. I was playing that with the Pro controller and a metal kickstand. That's the only time I ever used it, not docked. So, personally, I'm out. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't want it. It's neat and it's low cost, $199 for a Switch. It's cool. I just don't know if that's going to alienate people that you can't dock it. I really don't. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But nobody was surprised by that announcement at all. Everybody knew it was coming. Leaks abound. But anyway, personally, I'm not getting one. I just don't use my Switch enough to care. All right, so I had some people send me some questions. Let me look on Facebook, too, to see if there's any more. Let me refresh this. Justin Duncan asks thoughts on what future Marvel movies you would like to see in the future. I'm not a Marvel guy, so I really don't know, and I don't really care. I wish I had a better answer. I would like to see. I would like to see them go back and do a Captain America between the first and second one, like back in World War II. Still, I'd like to see that, but it won't happen because Chris Evans is pretty much done with the part. I love the first Captain America. It's still my favorite Marvel movie. Joe Johnston is one of my favorite directors. And I just love that movie. And Winter Soldier is one of the best ones also. Noe RCO says thoughts on remakes versus remasters versus untouched collections of retro games. I don't really have a general statement about that, honestly. Untouched is fine if it looks fine. If it's too old, you get in this weird area where, like, do you really need a remaster of an Atari 2600 game or even a 5200 game? No. There's no gradients. It's all flat colors. Upping the resolution isn't going to do shit because it's all, it's not polygons. It's just flat, whatever. Remastered PS1. I think remasters or remakes is probably a better thing, like Crash Team Racing. Definitely shows how good it can be. I think it's a great example. And a lot of people will complain if you do like an up conversion of a PS1 game. People are going to complain. I personally probably wouldn't, but people will. I've kind of evolved with that too, because for a while I didn't want to see remasters, especially. I'd rather have a remake that uses the original assets as much as they can, and like the Crash Bandicoot game and Crash Team Racing, that sort of thing. Up conversions can be cool depending on the platform that they're originally from. I've definitely I mean, you see benefits with like sprite-based stuff, especially. You see all the people bitching that there's no CRT filter on this, which fuck CRT filters. I like using smoothing on a lot of that stuff on the Sega Genesis collection on the PS4. I use smoothing. I'm not a pixel art purist. I think the pixel art is still there, but the smoothing is really nice, especially with gradients of color. Untouched is nice too. I mean, the cool thing is a lot of the times they give you the option, and the option's cool. Not only because then you can see what the differences are between how it used to look and how it can look nowadays, but options are nice, choices are nice, and it doesn't take that much to do it. Revy, Jonathan Smith, think there will be a SOCOM reboot on PS5? No. That franchise is dead. It absolutely dead. It sucks. It's dead. And we had a lot of coverage of H-Hour years ago. I went down to the studio and talked to David Troy Sears, who now is at, was it Compulsion Games or whatever? The ones that did We Happy Few. He was the creative director on that. H-Hour had a lot of promise, and I was really excited for it. I backed it on Kickstarter, which I rarely ever do. And I've got the PC version, and I think it looks good, but I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. It's got too small of a team working on it. I think they squandered a lot of the money they made. They made good money out of the Kickstarter, but they squandered it. They're unwilling to make sacrifices, or, they've had chances to, like, for, let's say, an Activision to publish them. But the problem is then these companies that are publishing it want rights to it, and they're unwilling to give up the rights, which I get. I totally get it. But they're not willing to even bend, and they're not willing to negotiate. And the game's going to have a really hard time coming out on anything but PC. Because PC, you just, you throw it on Steam or whatever. But when you get to consoles, you got to have publishing deals, and you have to be an approved publisher with that console. You have to deal with a lot more QA. There's a lot more you have to deal with. And I originally backed it for the PS4. I don't ever expect it to hit the PS4. I mean, look how many years it's been. It's frustrating as hell. But I've talked to people that were directly involved with making the decision about SOCOM, and they pretty much told me it's never happening. And it sucks. I would love a new SOCOM. A new legit SOCOM I would love. But it's not going to happen, in my opinion. Eric Hofer, thoughts on the possible TurboGrafx Mini, which I don't know why you said possible, but I've already talked about that. Borton Sobro, just happy to hear that you're podcasting again. Thanks, buddy. I don't know if this is going to be a one-off thing or what. Charles Zimmerman, can we talk about the best retro system and why that system is the Sega Genesis? Is that Mark? Mark likes giving me a lot of shit now. He'll text me off the cuff and just start calling me Genesis fan. Like, oh, only a Genesis fan would say that sort of thing. I appreciate the Genesis more now, but it's still not my favorite console. I still love the SNES to death, and obviously I love the TurboGrafx to death, which is funny since Mark likes the TurboGrafx quite a bit as well. But I do appreciate it more now that I've kind of changed my perspective on the Genesis, and the fact that it's more of a replacement for the NES than anything else. It's not this arcade 16-bit blah, blah, blah. It's not an arcade level system. It's just not. Not with that terrible sound chip that only one person could do anything with. But, yeah, I guess that's everything that I had on my little list there. I did see Spider-Man Far From Home. And again, I'm not a big Marvel fan. I don't know the storylines. I don't know the mythos overall. I thought it was excellent. And the cool thing was, Rock and I went and saw it on Saturday, and he hadn't seen Endgame yet. So we actually went and saw Endgame as well, and both were $5 matinees. So $10 we got to see two really good movies. And seeing Endgame before it actually was a welcome treat. It's a lot of movie. I mean, you're talking. We probably sat in the theater for 6 hours that day, but I really liked Far From Home, and I love Homecoming as well. I never understood for years. I never understood the love people had for Spider-Man, and I'm still kind of on the fence about it. But what they're doing with Spider-Man in the MCU now, I love, and I think Tom Holland just owns that character. I think he's awesome. But the fact that Sony made the deal with Marvel and let Marvel run this, I think was just an awesome decision. And I'm sure, like, if I was on here with David Jaffe would be like, because he's a Spider-Man fanatic, he'd probably talk for an hour like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith's review of Spider-Man Far From Home is longer than Spider-Man Far From Home. Jeez. But I loved it. I mean, obviously, if you're a fan of the series, you're probably going to go see it anyway. But there's 2 different end credit scenes, by the way, so stay for both. And that Endgame re-release, that's what we saw. The stuff at the end is, you can see it on YouTube. So don't expect any new scenes. There's one new scene that actually you'll see in Spider-Man. But then there's a tribute to Stan Lee, which I saw on YouTube. So, yeah. And then also just watch Shazam again on home video. Again, it's I'm a DC geek. I never really knew much about Shazam. I know there was an old TV show. I never really knew much about the character. There's an animated movie on Amazon Prime that's Shazam and Superman with Black Adam. It was cool, and it shows you the origin story and everything. And the origin story is pretty much the same in the live action movie, which is fine. It's really good. It's really fun, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And I actually watched it with my parents this time, and they even liked it. So if you're on the fence about Shazam, definitely watch it. It's got a lot of heart, and it's funny because then I watched Aquaman last night again. And if DC could keep doing what they did with Aquaman, which is fantastic, and with Shazam, and with Wonder Woman, if they could keep doing that, especially with Batman, who their biggest franchise is, and they keep fucking up, DC could rule the universe. But they're trying to do like Marvel, but they're doing it the wrong way, and it's frustrating because Aquaman's really good. And this is a character I've joked about for years, the Family Guy thing with, hey, you're lucky you're not in the water doing that. This guy talks to fish. But Aquaman's really good. So, yeah, Spidey Far From Home is excellent. And it's one of my favorite things that Jake Gyllenhaal's done, actually. He really did a good job in that role. But, all right, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Let me know what you think. I'm going to put this up on YouTube, so let me know what you think in the comments. If you want me to keep doing this, maybe someday Stuart will get off his ass and join me, and we'll do a legit podcast and see how that goes, and maybe we can schedule something once or twice a month. I'm probably going to stream something soon. Not sure what. I got to look for a job this afternoon, and I got to work on the Extra Life stuff tomorrow, but I'll probably stream some stuff soon. So let me know what you're interested in. L. Saturn, miss you, Glenn. I miss you guys too. I actually really do. Yeah, I needed to leave the podcast when I did. I was having some brain problems, which I'm still kind of having. But I just wasn't willing to deal with the bullshit that I was getting from a certain person. And I'm just tired. Literally, it was just me being tired. Because I do miss it. I don't pine over podcasting. I miss the people. I mean, honestly, I didn't want our guys to go to E3 this year. After seeing, especially No Clip's E3 special and how dead it was, and talking to some other PR people that I know, I'm still regretting that I sent those guys, the MJC and Dave, to E3. I think it was kind of a waste of money. And we have those affiliate links to pay for things, and I personally would have rather used the money for other stuff. I think E3's dead if they keep doing the things they're doing, but I miss going. I miss seeing everybody. You get to know these people over. What did I do this for? 12 years. You get to know people, and it's after a while you're emailing back and forth. I've been emailing with some PR people today, and being able to see those people in person is a really cool thing, and it's one of my favorite things about the fact that I did PS Nation for so long. I'm still doing it. I still own the website. I still own the company. I'm still editor-in-chief, at least by title. Everybody questions what I do and whatnot, but that's still my title. But I've had writer's block really bad lately. I've been working on this one review for like 2 months. But right now, things are settling down with Josh leaving, and I'm getting my hands wrapped around the website more. I'm working on ads right now, and John is doing a fantastic job of reviewing all the reviews and getting those edited and posted. Man, the PS Nation writers, the staff, handled Josh leaving so well overall. Just everybody chipped in when they could. Chaz taking over the image work and John taking over the reviews, and I've been basically working on the website, and I'm trying to get the forums updated right now. I'm having a problem with those guys, but we're still here, and we're still going to be here. Josh leaving, honestly, isn't that big of an impact. So it's just learning new things that he did. But I do miss everybody. I really miss the interaction. I was kind of bummed this year at MGC because I think people forgot about it. And we had a good group of people at MGC, but it was definitely smaller. But it was still a blast. Just a blast. And hopefully I can figure out how to get people involved again. We stream all the time, but nobody seems to care. Especially the Destiny 2 stuff. But anyway. Gotta do what you have to do, man. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not. The biggest reason I left the podcast was, I wouldn't say it was a personality thing, but it was not differing opinions. It was trying to think of how to say this. It was, well, when I retired from the podcast, people took that as me retiring from everything. And some people decided that they were going to try to take charge. And which was really out of line. But not just that. That I squashed that pretty quick. But there were definitely communication issues. And there were before I even left. There were big time communication issues. And when someone says this wasn't my choice, even though that person's decisions were that person's choice, but I was laid out to be the bad guy. I took a beating, and I really did. I got depressed about it. I took a really bad beating, and it wasn't my choice. It was someone else's choices that made me make that decision, and it wasn't an easy one. And I talked to quite a few people about making that choice, but at the end of the day, it had to happen because long-term relationships that PS Nation has with some publishers was being broken. It just flat out broken. And it had to happen. So, anyway, I didn't want to get into that, but yeah, let me know if you guys want me to do this again. Someday, Stuart and I will do something. I'll have a better setup for audio. I'll use my, where is it? I use my old podcasting mic. Problem is it's plugged into the Macintosh right now, and I'm on the Windows machine. So, and thank you for listening, Saturn, for 9 years. I don't know how many years. I think we're at 12 years now, aren't we? Something like that. 13? Anyway, I'm still here, though. I'm still watching everything. I'm still watching the forum, still watching Twitter, still watching Facebook. I just, I'm trying to leave things up to the guys that are on the podcast now, and I'm trying to leave things in other hands and see if they want to take over what I need to fill in. But I'm still very active. So if you guys have any questions, contact me, man. For sure, more Torgo. Well, I'm kind of fat. I need a hip replacement. Legitimately need a hip replacement. And I just lost my insurance. So I don't get around too well anymore. My new dog, who you might be able to see back there. She's mad at me because I haven't been able to take her for a walk lately because I can't walk very well. But, yeah, if you guys have any questions, whatever. I don't even know what I'm going to call this when I put this up on the feed. But I'm going to put this recording up on the feed and stuff and junk. So, sorry to keep rambling. Glenn's still our boss forever. Oh, Sean. Seriously, folks, thanks for joining me on this stream. Sorry that it didn't really work very well. OBS decided to take a shit. I have no idea how the video is going to look or nothing. And hopefully the audio came out all right. We'll find out about that. But thanks much. I'll start a thread in our forums if you guys want to comment, like what you want to see, if you'd like me to come back, if you want me to go away, if you want me to talk about more barbecue stuff, which I didn't talk about barbecue at all, since people always gave me shit about that. I mean, the thing is, though, I'm still a big PlayStation fan, and there's a lot to love, but my focus lately has been retro stuff, and it's just the way it is. I'm an old man, and I guess I'm feeling nostalgic. I'm not sure. But thanks, everybody, for watching the stream that were here. Was it 4 people? 12 people? Wait, people are nuts. Hi there, KR1 Knox. I'll upload this to the PS Nation YouTube channel when I get time, and I'll upload the audio to our regular podcast feed if anybody's interested. But yeah, send mail either to Glenn at psnation.com, Glenn with 2 N's at psnation.com, or you can just send an email into podcast at psnation.com. Don't forget our affiliate links because that pays our bills. Please, please, please. I'm going to do that Loot Crate thing soon. I think I'm just going to record a video and edit it together. I'm not sure if I can do a stream with that, but I don't even know how many Loot Crates I have to unbox. It's got to be 20 or 30. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, if there's any streams you want to see, anything like that, I've got old systems, I got new stuff. I got 70 some consoles now. 73 consoles maybe. So yeah. Maybe some Pippin. You all want to see some Pippin, don't you? Some Apple Pippin, Apple's gaming console. That's what you want to see. Anyway, thanks much. Talk to y'all soon. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at TorgoPSN. Or you can just follow at PS Nation, obviously. And I'm still there, too. But thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Sorry to be rambling. I'll talk to you later. Get out there, play some games. Bye.